Hello soul family, hello soul tribe. Welcome to this channel where we heal and integrate, because consciousness is the new frontier. The work of healing is the work of removing distorted perceptions from our psyche. And the work of integration is the work of remembering who we are. And who we are is the divine human spirit, connected to God, connected to life, connected to each other, connected to all that is. I wanted to just say, I feel like the background today works well with my whole look and everything. But I honestly don't know how I'll ever wear those shoes again. I can't imagine how I ever wore those shoes ever in my life. But they look well for the video. And we are spiritual people, but we are still girly girls, and we like, all sorts of things that are nice and girly looking. So that works for that as well. So anyway, today we are going to be talking about the spiritual nature of empathy. Okay. Empathy as a spiritual gift. That's what we're going to be exploring here. So before we go ahead, let me just remind you to like, so that YouTube can keep promoting these videos, and also subscribe and share with other like-minded people. So the reason why I had to do this video today with regards to empathy as a spiritual gift, I was inspired by Spirit to actually do this, because empathy is one of those things that have had a bad rep in our society. And the reason for that is because, of course, we are living in a materialistic society, in a society that is very much intellectual, and, it's all about, mind and body, kind of like, it's all about, reason. And there's nothing wrong with reason. There's nothing wrong with being practical. There's nothing wrong with valuing matter, the material plane and the external aspect of things, because they're important and they have their place. However, the challenge comes when that's all we see, because, in our true nature, we are really spirit beings, right? We are spirit. And so the mind and body are just two other aspects of who we are, but who we really are is spirit. So if we neglect this aspect of ourselves, that literally just sets us up for a whole lot of challenges. And so what has happened in our society is that we have become so materialistic and, so superficial in nature, that things that have to do with spirit have been disregarded, have been relegated to, untouchable aspects of life. And so what you find is that the only form of spirituality that seems to be appreciated in this world is one that, for example, has to do with being able to remote view, or being able to foresee certain things before they happen, and perhaps being able to see into the future of certain people, and telling them their fortunes, right? One of the things that I encounter as a spiritual practitioner is that people come to me and really they want to know if they can salvage an existing a toxic relationship. They want to know if I am able to mix up some portion to salvage a relationship that's really not even meant to survive. So those are some of those challenges that you deal with, as a spiritual practitioner. You realize that human beings are still caught up in that paradigm where they don't really understand what spirituality is. And really, the role of a spiritual practitioner is to help us remember who we are. More than anything, the role of a spiritual practitioner is to help us remember who we are. The spiritual practitioner is not really that person that you slot money into and then they get to magically make things happen in your life. They help you. They serve as a bit of a guide whilst you are still on your journey to remembering who you are. But even in that role of a guide, what we are meant to do is really to help you to see certain things that you may not be aware of, that pertain to your spiritual nature. And for example, with me, I'm not going to be that person that's going to be telling you what another person is doing somewhere else. Okay, and this is not because I'm trying to be mean or I'm not trying to be helpful, but I don't have authority over that. You know, as part of my initiation, one of the things that I had to learn is how to respect boundaries. So it can be very dangerous for me and even for you as well, for us to pry into other people's businesses. Of course, there are other spiritual practitioners who are, you know, initiated into the dark arts, who will most assuredly be willing to offer that type of service, and it is what it is, right? But that's not what I am here to do, and that's not what I believe the role of a spiritual practitioner should be. But yeah, you know, that's just my take, right? So let's look into what empathy is, you know, once again, because I was just trying to explain here how that the world has given empathy such a bad rep. So what's happening here is that the world, because, you know, it has become materialistic and it's all about, you know, reason and, you know, being just very practical, there seems to be an element of being cut off from our spiritual nature. It's like we approach life from a perspective where we don't realize, or where we don't even recognize that we are spirit beings. We only see ourselves as just these three-dimensional beings. We are not aware of our multidimensional nature. And I mean, that's crippling. Like, if you look at it from a spiritual perspective, like, it's really crippling, you know, because at a material level, if you are successful in this society, you might not see anything wrong, right? Because to a certain extent, you might have that comfort that sort of like makes you feel like money can buy you everything that you want. But when you dig deep enough into it, you will understand that matter cannot give you things that spirit can give you. You know, true happiness does not come from the things of this world. The things of this world can add to your happiness, absolutely, and they can play a big role in the manifestation of your joy and happiness, right? But they are not in themselves those things that are going to give you happiness. And you know, if you've been in a situation where maybe you were praying and praying, looking for a partner, and then you got that partner, and then it was like, okay, now that I got this partner, so what? And then you realize, oh snap, this relationship cannot give me happiness. Then you will understand what I'm talking about, right? So the materialistic nature of our society has caused us to disengage and to disconnect from our true essence, which is spirit. And so what that means is that before anything else, we want to look into the spiritual aspect of things, because whether we are aware or not, whether we, you know, appreciate that reality or not, the fact will always be that everything that happens on the physical level, on the material plane, happens first in the spiritual realm. So when everything is going well in our lives, that's all good and well. You know, we can afford to not pay attention to spirit. But when things fall apart in our lives, like what has happened in 2020 and what has been happening since then, and also a whole lot of other things that have been happening even prior to 2020, those kind of things, when they happen in your life, you will find yourself in a situation where you're going to need, you know, answers. You're going to need solutions to your problem that go beyond just the three-dimensional perspective. You know, there are some problems that you will deal with in life where you are not going to be able to just say, oh, well, it's just life, it just happened, it is what it is, moving on. You know, you will want to understand exactly what is it that happened there, how, and what does that mean for you. You know, you'd want to find some sort of meaning from that particular experience. And, you know, spirit is what gives us meaning to a lot of things. Spirit is what helps us to take the right kind of direction in our lives, especially when we are feeling lost. So that's that missing element in our society. You know, many people, even as I make the joke about solving the world's problems, many people assume that we'll be able to simply solve the world's problems by just thinking a lot, you know, just troubleshooting and just having a lot of conversations about all these issues that we are dealing with. But honestly, the true and one solution that would be ideal for a world that is headed for destruction would be the spirit, bringing in the element of spirit. And of course, you know, those people that are very, into the three-dimensional perspective of life, they might listen to someone like me and say, oh yeah, of course you will say that because you are a spiritual person, or you are just being woo-woo, you are into heads in the cloud type of thinking, you are into magical thinking, and so on and so forth, because people have trivialized spirituality, which is very sad, right? Very, very sad. But yeah, the truth is that the only way we will really get to deal with the problems of this world is if we incorporate spirit into the solutions, right? If we incorporate God into the solutions. So because we have overlooked the spiritual side of things, we've also overlooked what is this? We've overlooked empathy. We've overlooked empathy. What's happening with this empathy thing? We've overlooked it. We see, because understand this, spirit is energy. And so when spirit moves, what we get is energy in motion, and that's emotion. So if you are someone that is very, very spiritually inclined, that means you are a very emotional person. Okay. Because spirit is energy and it's emotion. And this is one of those things also that I just said about our society, because we've fragmented all of these spiritual concepts so that it's like we've literally, fractured our own divinity. And, we've fractured the divinity of God, right? Well, to ourselves, because we can't really fracture God, in his whole being. And how we've done that, for example, is we've created this thing where it's like, there's that fragment there. We've got the field of psychology, we've got the field of philosophy, we've got the field of religion, and then we've got, people like us who are sort of like your new agers and whatever you want to call them, the woo-woo people, the love and lights namaste people. And then you've got, a whole lot of, you've got science there, you've got this there, and then there's nothing that unifies these things, even though they are actually the same thing, and they're all meant to be working together, all right, towards a whole, a complete picture. Okay. And so what that has done is that now we've got concepts like love and, what is it? It's love, it's peace, it's joy, it's beauty, it's harmony, those kind of divine principles. We've got them in such a way now that they are just, concepts that are just out there, lofty little concepts that we've even perverted the meaning of what they are. We love has become something else now. It's not what love really is, right? Love is considered, whenever it is that human beings think love, they're thinking possession, they're thinking something that they can take for themselves and keep for themselves. That's how for them they understand love. Something that belongs to you, something that you can, and so what has also happened is that, things like feelings, and the spiritual nature of feelings have been completely just twisted upside down. So we now no longer understand and respect the spiritual nature of feelings. But, nowadays when people are, and, God will play jokes on human beings, right? Like, for example, when God created empaths, I feel like God was playing a joke on human beings, because, an empath is that human being that literally is, is a slap in the face of a materialistic world. That's what an empath is, because, if you've had an empath who's your child, if you've had an empath as a child, you'll understand that as a parent, chances are you would have done everything and anything in your power to appease that child. But if you did not understand that empathy element of things, chances are you would have had a very rough time raising that child, right? Because there'll be very few things that would have been able to, the child would be a very finicky child, right? A very picky child, a very unique human being, right? So and so that has to do with the fact that, the child is very feely, right? Feels a lot, senses a lot. So they've got huge capacity for feeling and for sensing. So that's that extrasensory ability. And so the world that we've been living in, of course, because it has neglected the spiritual side of things and just turned it into psychology, and that's that. And then there's also religion, and that's that. And then everyone else is just woo there in some corner there. Now it's like things like feelings, there are just things that need to be managed, right? And then you go to a therapist and they just manage those feelings or teach you how to just basically behave well, act right, be right. And then that whole aspect of the spiritual nature of what you're really dealing with gets neglected, because that's not what a psychologist is going to do. And here's the thing, I still advocate for therapy. I believe that it has its value, right? But I don't believe that it answers all the questions that have to do with what is happening within the human psyche, because of the fact that it does not really value or understand the spiritual side of things the way that it really ought to, or the way that people who are dealing with the psyche ought to understand the spiritual side of things. And so this is how then empaths have suffered in our society, because as long as the spirit side of things is not being acknowledged and the spiritual nature of emotions and feelings are not being acknowledged, that means that an empath, whatever it is that they are always dealing with, society might not be able to understand or be able to deal with it. All right. And so empaths, let's explain what an empath is and what empathy is. Empathy is a spiritual gift, okay? And so I dare say that it is a cosmic spiritual gift. And of course, I'm an empath myself. That's why I'm saying this. So it is a cosmic spiritual gift that has to do with not clairaudience, right? Clairsentience and claircognizance, right? So claircognizance is that ability to just know in your knowing. You just know certain things, right? You just know certain things and you don't have any proof about what you know. You don't have any intellectual explanation in your mind about what it is that you are knowing, but you just know it, right? There's that element. So that's claircognizance, right? And then it's that intuition, right? Because it's intuitive, empathy is intuitive in nature. Some people can even say it's an overactive intuition, something along those lines, right? And then we've got clairsentience. And clairsentience, what it is the ability to feel beyond or sense beyond the five senses, sense beyond the 3 dimension. So you are able to sense things that are in the invisible realms of life. You are able to sense things that are in the spirit realm. So that's what empathy really is. And it is way bigger than you can even imagine. Because, for example, for me personally, one of the things that have become very clear to me is that I come from a long line of empaths and spiritual practitioners. My family generally is very spiritual in nature. Like my whole entire family, like I don't know anyone in my family that's not spiritual, like that does not have some kind of a spiritual gift, right? And so I come from a long line of spiritual practitioners, and so those whose gifts I'm carrying with me, because this is where the element of ancestors come in. Because when you tap into cosmic spirituality, you understand the importance of ancestors like nobody's business. All right, because really one of the things that we are also doing as cosmic beings is that we are sort of, it's not like a relay match, but we are sort of like in a relay process kind of. So we keep handing things down over to each other through genetics, right? So this generation will accomplish whatever it is that it accomplishes, and then of course there'll be certain things that it will not be able to accomplish, and then so it will hand over the baton to the next generation to be able to continue with that. And so the information pertaining what that spiritual mission is that is being handed over to you travels through the genes. Okay, so divine intelligence sets things up so that the genetics and the DNA basically carries the memory. So already before you are even born and before there's that long line of ancestry that you are dealing with, already the divine knows, because remember, to the divine, and also with us, we are multidimensional beings, right? So there's no that thing of linear time and all of that. So it's like every single one of us that's going to be fulfilling this particular function, of course connected by genes and by the blood and by DNA. Literally, it's like we already have it within us to know that this is what this person has, and whatever it is that they have and whatever it is that they have not completed, you are going to be completing it, you are going to be doing it, because whatever their soul mission was is your soul mission as well. Okay, so ancestors become very important in this regard, because we are literally continuously continuing with that journey, like that our ancestors have started, right? And sometimes, of course, your ancestors may have started something very bad, and unfortunately, you might find yourself having to also correct that as something that is part of your soul mission. That's fine. It is what it is, right? So for me personally, the people who gave me this gift, the people from whom I inherited this gift, were cosmic mediums. Okay, so they were cosmic mediums, and so what that means is that they actually channeled, they channel like the stars. You see, that's where my relationship with the stars come from. Okay, they channeled the stars. They used to channel the stars, and I wasn't getting it. That's what they were doing, until of course they began to reveal these things to me. And so those people used to they used to have a very strong relationship with the stars and with the sky that I was not getting, I was not understanding. And they had a strong relationship with nature as well, of course, and I was also still not getting it until they made it clear to me. And so they channeled the moon, in particular. They used to channel the moon, or they channeled the moon, and they channeled the stars, they channeled the sun as well, they channeled the cosmos, basically they channeled nature. And so that's something that became very apparent to me as I went through my initiations. And that's the cosmic nature of things. And they were empaths. Okay, they were empaths, and so they were channeling all these things via intuition. Okay, and so one of the things that you will realize about yourself as an empath as well is that your calling is that big, because I mean, like I said, under normal circumstances, you typically will channel maybe certain people that have deceased loved ones and so on. But here you are literally, I mean, understand this is no child's play. You are literally receiving messages from the moon itself. Like, that's not child's play, because how do you begin to receive a message from the moon? Especially with all these stories that are going around about the moon. There are so many stories that are going around about the moon, right? But that's what it is. And so that intuitive and that, extra sensory nature that, you are all about, is that aspect of you that is able to receive messages from, because remember, the moon is alive, right? Is a being. Okay, the moon is a being just like you, like nature, like all these things that we don't think are we don't take them seriously because they're not like us, they don't talk like us, they don't do things like us, we don't take them seriously, right? But these things are real. And so you hear messages from those things. Okay, and you don't necessarily just hear them, unless if you also have those clairaudience gifts and so forth. But really, you sense them in those extrasensory abilities and faculties of yours. So that's what empathy is. So the ability to sense, extra information and to know certain things that you don't know about. And the importance of, the cosmic nature of empathy as a spiritual gift, because like I said, if you are an empath, chances are you also have a cosmic gift as well. Okay, you'll also begin to realize, and that's why I'm sharing my memory, my situation with you as well, is so that you too can look into your empathy, right? Your gift of empathy, to see how has it been nudging you, in what direction has it been, drawing you. Okay, because chances are you will notice that there are also a lot of things that you'd be like, for example, there are times when I speak to my clients and then they will tell me that another client was telling me the other day that, her daughter will look at life around her and they will see that I'm not like, I'm concerned about a whole lot of other things in this world that my peers are not necessarily concerned about. I'm interested in a whole lot of other things in that my peers are not typically interested in, like, for example, solving the problems of the world. And half the time the reason for this is because it's your calling. It's your calling. But the problematic nature of empathy as a spiritual gift is that what happens is you've got this big capacity to feel big things, because remember, if you are going to have conversations with the moon, you need to have capacity to hold the space for the kind of energy, that the kind of information that the moon will bring your way. And half the time, the information that the moon brings your way, there are times, like, of course, depending on, where you are in terms of your spiritual journey and all of that. But there'll be times when, the moon is giving you great information and your interaction with the moon is beautiful and it's amazing. But there are times, which is quite often as well, that the information that's coming there is not pleasant, right? It's not fun, it's not great. And the reason for that is because the moon reports. I don't know if I should say report, but the moon tells us about ourselves. The moon reflects to us where we are in our cosmic journey. And of course, unfortunately, at this point in time, we are not necessarily at the greatest place we've ever been, even though I'm sure we are better than where we may have been at some point in life. But still, we are not doing that great as well. And so when you spend time with the moon, you get access to that information, because literally when you channel entities like the moon, when you channel the moon, or when you channel anything or anyone, all that channeling is literally just holding the space for that particular entity or person, right? It's literally visiting with someone, sitting down with them and having a conversation with them, or letting them talk to you, and then you just saying, okay, tell me what you want me to know, and then the person tells you what they want you to know. And then, so if the person is not going through the greatest of times, unfortunately, you are basically going to have to hold the space for whatever negative energy that they so you are not the dumping ground per se, but you are then allowing space. And unfortunately, when some of these energies pass through, of course, they are going to be triggering to you with regards to whatever, energies that you might be holding within yourself that are a match to those negative energies that are passing through you from the other party, right? So that's why it's not an easy thing. But, and here's the thing, it's a huge entity. You understand? The moon is a huge entity. So you need a huge capacity. Like we've got Jojo tanks. We've got a thing called a Jojo tank, and it holds water, right? You need something bigger than a Jojo tank to hold the space for the moon, okay, to be able to channel the moon. So, and then that tank, of course, that container is of course invisible in nature, and most of the time, if you're an empath, you are born with it. And so what may have happened is, of course, it may have been diluted or just filled by a whole lot of junk in there, that have to do with traumas and all sorts of negative experiences that you may have experienced in this life. So now it becomes a challenge and part of your initiation to clear all those debris, all the dirt, all the junk in that container, so that then you will be able to hold the space. So we are those people. So if you are an empath, chances are you are very closely linked and connected to nature, right? You are very, very connected to nature. and this is why. Okay, it's because you are those people that are here. That's why sometimes I think there's somewhere where I said, like you are literally a human fairy. That's what you are, like you are a human fairy, like that kind of, because you keep the company of cosmic beings, as much as you keep the company of human beings and all of those things. For me, I'm very much a recluse, and it has to do with the phase that I'm dealing with right now in my life. I have to do certain things which are out of the ordinary, right? But the point is, you have your feet on two sides, right? So on one end, you this spiritual being that has conversations with stars and with the moon and with the sun and with other invisible forces, and then at the same time you are still here in the world and you are still interacting with the world of matter and so on and so forth. So that's what it means, to be an empath. And so once again, the reason why I'm sharing this with you is so that you can compare your experience with what I'm sharing with you, right? So that you can compare what has been happening with you with regards to your empathy, to see if there are dots that are coming together, because our dots come together when we have this kind of conversations, right? If you've never had anyone talking about channeling the moon or channeling the stars or channeling anything of that nature, you might not be open to even consider the possibility that the moon might be talking to you as well. You understand? The stars might be talking to you as well, and they talk, and they live. Guys, like, you'll be standing there, and the thing is, it's not even extraordinary. I really have a feeling that I've got the genetics of the koi koi. I hope I'm not saying it wrong, or I hope this is not a bad word, because it's possible that it could be a bad word, right? Within me, I really believe that I have those genetics, and a lot of people actually mistaken me to be, that person. So chances are I've been that person in another life, or I've got, ancestors of that lineage. And one of the things that you will notice about them and the way that they live life is they are literally in this cosmic oneness with life, right? Like it's like they understand their relationship with life, with nature. They literally sleep under I don't know the current ones, but previously, as far as I know and understand, they would literally just sleep under the sky, under the open sky, and they'll just be looking at the stars like that, and they'll just be, quiet and just listening. So that's more or less the kind of experience that I have. That's how I do it. Like, I would literally just be, because it's not like there's some strange thing going on there, like there's some kind of ritualistic magic or anything like that would be going on. Literally, it's like a typical person that goes outside, sits in front of the house or whatever, or even inside the house. Sometimes I do it inside the house, right? But it's like it's nighttime and you are just looking at the sky, and you are just marveling at the beauty of this world that we are part of, and it is us and we are it, and you are looking at it and you are seeing, oh my word, that whole thing that I'm seeing there in the sky is telling me about myself, right? And you're just marveling and you're just being grateful and you're just being present with the moment. And then the stars, right? They'll be moving, like they'll be moving like a star, like it would literally just be moving, like from one point and going to another point, or it will and then it will disappear, and then another one would be flickering, and like literally, like it's saying, hello, look at me. Like, they do this, like, oh my word, like you have to see it to understand what I'm talking about. Like, you have to experience it yourself to understand what I'm talking about. But like, they are alive. It's like 7 p.m., 6:30, I think 7 p.m., 7:30 p.m., maybe 8 p.m., up until 8 p.m. You can do something like that, right? Or, even 5 minutes, you can do it, Just hold the space and be present with those cosmic beings there. They are placeholders, as, I've been told by Gigi. They are placeholders, and for us, right, as, part of the soup of consciousness. And so as you are doing that and you're just having those beautiful moments, There's something that's going on within you. There's information that you are receiving. Okay. There's an activation that is taking place and you are not aware of it. You are not necessarily consciously participating in it like that. You know, you are literally just having a beautiful experience, enjoying these beautiful, beautiful things, and they are marvelous. Like you have to, like some of them are blue, some of them are red, some of them are orange, some of them are big, some of them are small. Like I said, some of them move, some of them wave. Okay, and some of them are constantly flickering like this. All right. I mean, like it's just magic. It's like you sometimes you don't even know which one to look at and focus on, and you know, it's like, oh, so many of you, like it's just beautiful. All right, and it will have to take an empath to understand what I'm talking about. Okay, so that's the juicy, you know, the wonderful, fun, fulfilling side of empathy, and I can tell you now, it's the most fulfilling experience I've ever had. There's nothing that tops, you know, connecting with the sky. Like there's nothing in this world that will ever, maybe something might pop up, who knows, but I've never ever, like in all my almost 40 years of being alive, I've never come across anything that is as amazing as interacting with the stars. You know, like as I said, if you would like to donate for me, I'd really appreciate it, to buy a telescope. Hey, please, I'd really appreciate it. Because that's how serious this thing is for me. So anyway, that's what it means to be an empath and a cosmic being. I hope I covered everything that I needed to cover in these points. I can see that I'm going to be running out of memory now. So let's just end it here. But yeah, until next time, soul tribe, soul family. Remember, consciousness is the new frontier. I'm not saying be blessed or stay blessed anymore. I'm going to just say love and lights. Namaste.